There we go. It's always good to start a tech webinar being on mute. Just did that to demonstrate the versatility and technology in action and how it can fool us at any given time. My name is Simone Roche. I am the founder of Northern Power Women and the Power Collective. And today we are talking about tech. We are 100% passionate about role models. We're passionate about telling stories about people from different industries and different backgrounds. And we wanted to bring this conversation into the Northern Power Women and Power Collective community today because, you know, there's some startling facts out there. Only 19% of employees in the tech sector are women. The chief exec of Apple, Tim Cook, recently stated that there are not enough women at the table, including his own company. And he also stressed his concerns that without a more diverse workforce, technology will not achieve what it is possible to achieve. And despite there has been an 8% increase in girls choosing engineering in school, there are still in a minority. However, I feel that there is always some practical ways that we can turn this around. There's always some really easy, quick wins that we can do in a wide range that women can start a career in tech through apprenticeships, placements, and networking. What we want to do in this webinar is shine a light on the many different roles that we've got in technology and look at those actionable ways at which we can all work towards a more diverse workforce, which is what we all want. We're also going to take a look at what can be done to increase the current employment and education statistics of women in tech careers and subjects taken at an early age. So I am delighted to be joined by a stellar panel today. So we've got Irvi, we've got Izzy, and hopefully we're going to have Hina joining us soon as well from United Utilities. But I want to just start off the discussion by allowing the panel just to give us a quick update on who they are, what they do, and where does tech fit into their world. And I want to start by asking Irvi from Barclays. Barclays are amazing partners who enable this conversation to happen today. So Irvi, over to you. Welcome to the webinar, and thank you so much for your support.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully you can hear me. Everything's okay. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So yeah, my name is Uvi Darby. I currently work at Barclays. I'm in the role of a product manager. I've been there for just coming up to 2 years now. And I work in the technology division. It's called the infrastructure team. So work on really technical products, but I'm in what you'd call like a non-technical role. So I'm not coding every day. And I feel really passionate about exposing that there are roles in technology and in really, really interesting parts of technology that don't mean that you have to be a coder. You don't have to have experience in coding. You don't necessarily have to have done computer science at school. And I think that even just from my own experience, I don't think that's very well known when you're of the age when you're making these big decisions that are going to impact what career you end up going into. Sometimes it can feel like there's only a set number in front of you. So yeah, super passionate about that, and yeah, excited about the conversation today.
Oh, thanks so much. And we want you at home watching, or whether you're at work, home, on transport, please do join in the conversation. Join in the hashtag We Are Power and connect on all of our social media channels and also throw your questions in as well, because we want you to be part of this discussion. Izzy, welcome to today's Let's Talk About Tech webinar. Thanks so much for joining us from the Royal Navy, one of our amazing partners too, and such an amazing organisation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Hi, I'm Izzy Rawlinson. I'm a mechanical engineer submariner, as you've mentioned, in the Royal Navy. I've just left the waterfront, so I'm currently not working on a platform, and I've moved away into naval operations, so further away from what we were doing. However, essentially, my role, we support and operate a nuclear reactor on board both of the types of submarines that we've got, including all the primary side of it, the secondary side of it, as well as everything from operating to maintaining and project managing the maintenance program. So we look at everything from the nuclear side of stuff as well as the ship services side of stuff. So there's a wide spread of bits there, and just like Ovi said, it's not just coding or anything like that. In fact, I don't touch anything along those lines at all. And I've done everything from obviously being unsupported at sea to now being in a supporting role, looking at the logistical side of stores and operational capability and bits like that. And just to echo, I'm very passionate about proving that the world of tech isn't limited to software. And it is definitely, you can be hands-on mechanical, electrical, or hands-off and supportive as well.
Thanks, Izzy. Thanks so much. Hina, welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us from United Utilities, another one of our amazing supportive partners.
Thank you. So hi everyone, I'm Hina. So I'm currently the Chief Digital Officer at United Utilities. So I joined to help drive our digital utility ambition. My remit involves the entire ecosystem of IT. So from designing what technology solutions might look like within my team, through to then implementing those solutions and then supporting those solutions as well. And that could be building mobile applications, it could be building data models to help to use data to make smart decisions for the business to understand where they might want to prioritise their efforts, all the way through to teams that are implementing sensors and loggers on, you know, absolute kilometres of network. Just as a little signal, we have 78,000 kilometres of network that could potentially go around the world twice. So we have members of our team that also help us to understand how we implement sensors across that network, and also understand how data and analytics can be driven from that to use artificial intelligence. We have such a broad spectrum of things that people can do in technology, and it's just amazing how much of that can help us to drive, you know, the agenda of managing our water resources better, and, you know, really looking at water scarcity as well. So really good opportunities all round.
Well, thanks so much, the three of you, for giving us a great kind of intro. I think if I had a word cloud behind me, there would be so many opportunities up there, whether it be AI, processing, logistics, hands-on coding. There is just a plethora of opportunities out there. And I think that's one of the challenges and also opportunities that we have, is how can we storytell more? How can we reach out more? And how can we build that truly diverse workforce in the tech industry? Because, you know, we've said that the statistics are so very low, 19%. So how can we build that diverse workforce? And, you know, why is it important? Well, of course it's important, but how can we start? Where could we start with this? Izzy, can I come to you first?
I think to start off with, it's doing what we are now and proving that it's accessible to everyone and for everyone, and that tech encompasses absolutely every aspect of anything that's being done. There's always a technical role in it, and if we push it down at the lowest levels, as well as having role models more and more at the forefront in social media and stuff that we're doing today, as well as down at school level, university, really pushing programs to provide a diverse workforce. And it's not just about the fact that it's women in the workforce. It provides diverse thinking. It means that we step away slightly from groupthink and into a more diverse environment, as well as accepting the fact that the same types of people tend to be drawn into specific areas. That doesn't necessarily mean we all think the same way to achieve the same goal. And I think that diversifying any of that sort of stuff is always helpful.
Why you just talked about the scope of the round the world twice. This is not small fry, is it? Here, sort of, this is creating big, massive impact and massive change. But how can we build that diverse workforce?
I think for me it's about making it exciting. I mean, I've loved technology from a very young age. I had a great mentor in an uncle of mine, but I'll be really honest with you, I didn't actually do a GCSE in technology, because at the time, many years ago, it felt as though that wasn't exciting, it wasn't interesting. And I think what we really need to do is be clear that diversity of thought is so very important. And also there's so much around how we apply the skills of technology into real world scenarios. And I think that gap we could address is helping people to understand that technology can really change the way we work, we live, and the decisions we make in our daily lives. And so it's not just about coding, it's not just about technology, it's about solutioneering, to use a word. I think, one point I'll make is, I joined the industry a very long time ago when, if you're familiar with the IT crowd, it was a very famous series that came out, and I'll give you the Wikipedia of what they talked about. It said it was two tech geeks that are based out of a basement, and a new supervisor is hired. She turns out to be illiterate in technology, and together they land in hilarious situations. Now, that right there tells you that it was all about tech geeks and women. By the way, who was the supervisor in this scenario was a lady, didn't really have a place. And I think so much has changed in that, and it's now about the real world application. It's not tech geeks. Geeks come in all shapes, size. I'm a geek myself, but it's just making it more normal as a conversation. It's not tech, it's real world solutioneering.
I think to your point there, you just talked about, making it exciting. I also think you've just come up with the word of the webinar today, which is solutioneering. I love that. That's definitely going to be in the cheat sheet, top tips afterwards. But it's I think making things exciting, changing the narrative. And equally, it's language as well that sits around this. Urvi, how do we do this? Where do what's one of those things that everyone out there can do or get it, make a start?
Yeah, I think it's such a big question. I think, definitely to echo what Hina and Izzy have already said about diversity of mind, because I think it's pretty well known at this point that diverse teams create better solutions, etc. But I also think something that we maybe haven't touched on is then once there's a lot of focus on getting diversity into sort of the entry level of companies or getting more opportunities at that level, but then it's also creating environments where people feel comfortable, like they could stay, that could scope from mentoring schemes or even just representation, right? Having enough women or women of color in the office that people feel like they fit in, because I think that with a lot of focus being done on what we can do around getting people in the door, we also need to focus on what's going to make them stay as well, and making environments that they feel comfortable and to be able to produce those better ideas, those stronger outcomes in.
And I think there's something in that that retention piece. I think that's that's something that many industries will have that have that challenge of. And how do you keep that keeping the role interesting, exciting, evolving? That's what technology enables us to do, but it's creating that within the role. Now Izzy, I'm wondering how many people out there always will naturally connect the Royal Navy with technology. Where did your journey start in the Royal Navy? Did you come in thinking, right, this is the path I'm going to take, or knowing the Navy like I do in bits and pieces, it's a role that can evolve every single day. There is literally no 2 days alike.
Oh, that's very true. I cheated a little bit, if you like. I was brought up in a Navy family, and my dad has essentially, or I've followed in his footsteps and done what he's done. But I joined specifically with the idea of going into nuclear engineering, but wanting to work in an environment that was constantly changing. It's the most it's where you can essentially collaborate, operating, maintaining, and project management all in one. If you look at the differences between the reactors that we get to work with and throw them around and do all sorts compared to how you can in the civilian world, I think it's at the forefront of technology, and all of the platforms that defence works with has got to be at the forefront of innovation, because otherwise we're not going to keep up with where we are on a world stage and where everybody else is. So if you consider it in that respect, if you want to be somewhere near sort of the fighting arm of technology, not in a combative sense, then the military is somewhere to be. Maybe we are a little bit slower, but you definitely can't do any of the sort of stuff that I wanted to do with nuclear in the civilian world.
Thanks so much, Lizzie. And Hina, why do you think women are a minority in tech roles? We've talked about the tech. I think we've got Debbie. Thank you. Absolutely love the IT crowd. Do you think it stems to a lot about that and a lot about language? And Tara saying here, so much money and energy is wasted on focusing on recruiting and not on retention. But why do you think there's something in that language of the it crowd and the geek piece?
I think there is, because there's something that resonates with and I'll give you a very live example. If I'm out having a drink with a bunch of friends and some new friends are introduced to me, if I tell them what I do, sometimes the response will be, I never had you down as an IT geek. So I think there's a stereotype of what a technologist looks like, sounds like, and may come across and dress like. And I think that's a shame. And I think it comes from, I guess, external media, as well as, I guess, the stereotypes we might have in our minds. There's a lot to be said about the film industry as well. If you look at some of the most recent cybercrime initiatives, there will be a technologist who will be classed as a geek, and they may not look like your average person on the street. There'll all be something unique about them, which is a shame. But I think what I would say is that those biases are changing now fundamentally. And one of the key ways that we can drive that is by allowing people to have a voice at a table. So one thing I'm quite keen to do is make sure that when we've got people around a table, we've got diversity of thought. I will make sure that everyone's had an opportunity to tell me what they think. And sometimes it's about us also making sure we're leaning in to help understand through the recruitment process that the individuals that are helping us to sift through candidates that could potentially come into our organisation are also not necessarily driving an unconscious bias themselves as to what they're looking for in a candidate. So sometimes we look at ourselves, but we don't look at external factors that might be driving that stereotype that's coming into the organisation as well.
Talking about schools as well, just a little earlier, and the real gender stereotypes are formed by the age, anything between the age of 5 and 7. I think I might have talked about on a webinar before, but there's a great webinar out there, or sorry, great video out there called Redraw the Balance, and it's three women in a classroom, supply teachers, so the kids think, and they set about drawing jobs. Let's draw jobs, and it's postman Joe and fireman Jack and etc. And then the three women go out and come back in, and one is a firefighter, one is a fighter pilot, and one is a surgeon. And the thing that's always heartbreaking for me is the little girl that just gasps and goes, "Oh, it's dress up day." It's that kind of what is it that we can do? There's a lot of there's a lot of effort around recruitment, but what can be done at that earlier age? What can be done at that? It's something I would love to do more of, but we just can't do it. But what is there any great practice out there that's been done at that sort of very early age that can help us sort of reverse that stereotypical? Ovi, is something that you've been a part of, anything at Barclays or in your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I remember from even from school, and I think a lot of it comes back down to, and it's such a tricky, large question, because obviously with anything with stereotypes, it's such a difficult conversation to have and a mindset to break. But I think it's conversations with young people, it's about starting to break those stereotypes and having those conversations, and really just encouraging people of that age, 5 to 7, as you've said, or maybe even older or younger, but to just continue with what they're passionate about. I think there's even some studies, I don't have anything to hand, but I've definitely seen in the past, there's studies around choices being taken at the start of secondary school versus the end of secondary school, where things like what your friends are doing, or what you perceive as boy subjects and girl subjects, these things can have really, really big influences on you when you are that age and going through that. I myself went to a girls' school, so I don't feel like we did have as much of that. And actually, I see that as a little bit of a blessing, because we were definitely encouraged to follow what we liked. But there was still, even within just an all-girls setting, there was still a disparity between the amount of people that took, physics and maths and computer science versus drama and English, etc. And there's no right answers. I think it's just to encourage people who are children and girls especially who are interested in those subjects to carry on with them, you know, and build their confidence in doing so, even if that's not necessarily what all of their friends are doing, etc. I would also say, like, positive role models can have such a big impact, and I don't mean just in media, because I think there's such a lot of good work being done around that. I also mean just in people's, you know, whether it's an older cousin or an older student who's maybe doing that, or even someone that they know who's gone to university and is doing a STEM subject, or thinking about working in tech, like those type of things, and communications, and having, you know, I'm not a parent myself, but if you have kids that might be interested in STEM subjects, etc., having role models like that around them can make such a big impact. Like already today, I think both Izzy's obviously said that she's followed in her dad's footsteps, and Hina said about her uncle, like those personal relationships with people who you can see that might look like you, or you know personally, that you can sort of follow in their footsteps, or can even help you in your journey. They make such a big impact, I think.
And role models are really, you know, big in our world and what we do. And we do these power up mentoring sessions every single month, where you give 1 hour and you're talking to people either in the early careers, start of their careers, sort of just planning their career ahead. And it's the whole idea is almost to pass on the story of who you are and what you do, kind of thing. Because, you know, you could just say, oh, I'm going to talk to a woman over here about tech. Well, you know what, you could have a million different conversations. You know, so I think that importance of us all leaning in to be a role model, I think is really key, and sort of role modeling. Because, you know, you talked, Izzy, about whether you know, you can be hands-on or hands-off. You know, there's that, like I said, there's that word art or that word cloud behind me that can highlight every single role. And I think we're now in a point in our world where we are 5 to 6 distinct career changes or sector changes in our lifetime, which you think, oh no, I've been here for a long time. But I think if you think of your own roles, and where you know, not every role is one straight trajectory. We can wiggle out. But why do you think it's important? You've all taken, you know, agreed to be part of today's session, but why is it important to kind of lean in and share that story, even the good and the bad bits, if you like? Izzy, if I can come to you, because obviously you've got, you know, you have this fascinating journey. It's, you know, to see an officer in the Navy working on, you know, nuclear submarines is you know, it's a massive deal, isn't it?
I mean, well, I think so, but that's just blowing my own trumpet. When you mentioned bad bits, clearly we haven't necessarily got the best press at the moment, and that's really disappointing, because one of the reasons that I definitely wanted to do this is to promote how much our role is growing within the military, and hopefully within tech itself. Even just the time that I've spent in my personal career pipeline, it just shows that we are increasing the number of women who are open to tech. And I think one of the reasons that I mainly wanted to do this sort of stuff is to prove that the old myths, you know, you've got to be completely technically minded, you have to want to do maths and physics, or you have to be good at that to be good at all of the other types of tech that are open to you, is just not true. And if you have any type of interest in problem solving or solutionite, I've got it completely wrong there, but any type of wanting to find a solution, that's the type of think that will get you anywhere in tech. And you can be exceedingly physics, maths, electronics focused as well. It's just open to absolutely everyone, and trying to promote that type of thinking is that it's not open to me because I've not got good grades in this and this. It can start as just an interest in it, and then a lot of the jobs that we all do, it's very much on the job thinking, on the job learning, with a basis. Obviously you can't get anywhere without a base, but I don't think any of us are where we thought we would be based on where we were at school. And I think especially, and I really hope that it is promoted at school now, that yes, obviously getting all of these qualifications are very important as a building block and as a bridge to where you want to go, but a lot of it is learned out in the real world, for lack of a better term.
Thanks, Izzy. And Hina, you've had a variety of roles in the tech industry, and I'm looking at Tara's comment on in the chat about that retention. How has the tech industry sectors been able to retain you?
Very good question. Thank you, Simone. I think for me, it's always been about feeling like I'm adding value and feeling that, yes, I can make technology work, but we work with a team that can see the end-to-end result, and we can actually see the value of what we achieved. It wasn't just, and back in the day it was just making somebody's laptop work or unblocking a printer or building an application. I don't do any of that hands-on tech now. I think what's important is having an organization that you work for that recognize you as an individual, but also they're willing to lean in and they're willing to listen, that they keep an eye out if you feel like you're able to contribute, if there's a room full of people sometimes, because not forgetting, and I don't know if my other panelists here agree with this, but for myself, I've struggled with imposter syndrome for many, many years, and I've started to come out the other end of it in the tail end of my career now. And so what you don't do is you don't always wave the flag and say, do you know what, this works really well for me, or look what I achieved. And it's having people around you that can do that for you to help you to then flourish, to say, do you know what, you did this, you did a really great job, and we're really proud of that. Because sometimes you can get lost. And I think for me, the organisations I've worked in, from aerospace through to steel, I can recognise some of the work that Izzy has done. We've supported some of the systems on board some of those vessels, but a lot of it has been about the recognition of and support of people around you to allow you to have a voice, to recognise what you've achieved, and to help and nurture you where you might be struggling. And for me, that was imposter syndrome.
Thank you, and thank you for watching out there, or if you're indeed watching on catch up. But if you have got any questions right now, please do pop them into the chat. Ovi, you started your career on a technology graduate scheme, and again, sort of this, just looking at the whole retention piece. So I want to start with, how did you get involved, and why have you stayed? Why have you grown your career in across these sectors?
Yeah, so I joined on a grad scheme. In fact, I actually joined before that. I did an internship in my second year of university, the summer before my final year, and then on the back of that, I got a place on the tech grad scheme, which lasted for a year. How does it work? I mean, generally speaking, in most large industries, so I did mine in banking, but most industries have at least some form of this. Some of them might start at graduate, and then some of them might have more of a pipeline to it. I think some schemes even start in your first year of university. And for me, it was obviously I did it. I don't have any experience of entering the workforce in a different way, but it was great in the sense of it gave me that ready-made community of graduates that are all in a very the same situation as me, leaving university, starting the workforce, and many of whom, even though we've all moved to different companies, we're still in contact today. So that's definitely one thing, that inbuilt community. And it also it gives you, most grad schemes give you the opportunity to test out, if you like, spend a bit of time in different teams. So mine was with 2 different teams across technology, but even that is more experience very early on, because a lot of the time, when you're entering the workforce, you don't know what some of these roles mean. You're coming at it from a very academic mindset, and this is maybe your first foray into the professional workforce. So it's a really good, a lot of them gives a really good opportunity to almost try before you buy, in a way. And especially that's actually why I did the internship in the first place, was to actually see whether technology as a whole was somewhere I could see myself working on a bit more of a longer term. And if not, then that's fine. That's one less thing to endeavor. Luckily for me, I did enjoy it, so I carried on in the grad scheme, and that's obviously where I've chosen to continue my career. That being said, there is, with graduate schemes alone, there is the accessibility angle with that. A lot of them, if not most, do maybe ask for a degree, or they take university students. So if you are at university, they're a great option. But there are, I want to make make people aware that there are obviously options outside of that. Apprenticeships, you know, in the last 5 to 10 years, apprenticeships are even more, they're growing a lot. Barclays offer them in most of our locations and across more sectors than just tech, and they don't necessarily require degree. Some of them don't even require any academic qualifications at all. So if you are a school leaver with only with some GCSEs, if none, then there are options there. But then there's also opportunities after, because the other thing that apprenticeships are great for is if people have started their careers, and I know a few people at Barclays who have done this. They've started their careers, they might be 10, 15 years into their careers, and they've decided that they actually they want to look into technology, or they want a career change, and apprenticeships are also great for that as well. So there, while my experience with a grad scheme was great, and I would absolutely recommend it to a lot of university students, there are other ways in as well.
So then, how do we solve a problem like inclusivity in tech? You know, we talked about it, there's accessibility, there's different routes to get in there. We've talked about variety. We've talked about sort of the communities and the different roles that you can do. And, you know, there's sort of the real sort of different thing, you know, the diversity of roles. But what can we do to create those more inclusive cultures that will attract and retain? Because I think that's or retain and attract, whichever way around we want to look at it. Does mentoring have a part to play in this? Izzy, can I come to you? So probably about 5 questions in one there, not like me.
I think mentoring definitely has a massive part to play. I think it has a part to play in all aspects of any workforce, and for people to feel that they have somebody that they can relate to. And for example, I can relate to imposter syndrome, definitely, and we've definitely got a few comments in as well saying that they also relate. But it's not just us, and I think inclusivity and support comes from ourselves and our male counterparts as well. And if we get the same support from everyone, it will hopefully turn into, and it is hopefully going this way, where we do need the inclusivity, we do need the diversity, but hopefully it's getting to the point where it won't be a big deal when we get it, if that makes sense. So why should it be a big deal that we gain more women and a more diverse workforce? Well, realistically, it shouldn't. That should just be how it is. And when we get there and we realise that everybody is thinking the same way, everybody's capable, everybody's got a job to do, and they're achieving their job. Everybody has pros and cons, from personalities to essentially what they're good at in their specific job role. And when it becomes sort of supported from absolutely everyone, I think that's where everybody's really winning. And you can find that a team that you work for has all of those things, and you've never felt more accepted and included. And then you also have mentoring from anyone, from a parent or a superior, or even those that you work with or subordinates. If they look up to you, and many people will, regardless of where you are, you have to show yourself and others that it's definitely something that anybody can be capable of if they want to. And why shouldn't that be the case?
It's almost like saying the tech industry is a place that you can take your whole self into. It's just about, it's unearthing the right job that's the right fit for you. There's a report out a couple of weeks ago, which was up to 20,000 Black women are missing from the tech industry in the UK. And this is by a joint report. And it was very much analysing the data from the Office of National Statistics that found that only 1.8% of Black women in the UK are in the workforce, but only 0.7% working in technology. So if we're talking about wider diversity beyond gender, we've got to look at ethnicity, we need to look at socioeconomic, we need to look at neurodiversity. But what that wider lack of diversity, what can we be doing to be more inclusive, Hina?
I think the first thing I'd probably say is it's for us and the panelists here as well. We need to lean in more as role models to make sure people see that it is a place for all of us. and again, probably relating to Izzy's world, I used to work for an organisation called Babcock. We were providing services to the Ministry of Defence, and I was one of maybe 6 individuals on site on a naval base once, on a dockyard, that was of an ethnic minority. And actually, when we asked ourselves as to why that was the case, there was an answer. It was because you needed to be a British national to work for those sorts of environments. But then when you come into other sort of commercial environments or in utilities, and you ask yourself again, why don't we have the diversity? I think sometimes it is a case of making the environments feel comfortable for people to come and work and be themselves. It's about being able to feel comfortable to bring your whole self to work. And again, it goes back to that tag of, you know, is there a stereotype that you work in IT, you're an IT geek, therefore you must be male, you must be white, you must be completely geeky and understand every programming language that goes out there. And it's for us maybe to lean in, you know, working with local schools, working with sort of the education sector and driving programs and helping people to learn and educate that actually this is something that is inclusive for everybody. I think organisations are doing a great deal of work, including United Utilities, and a fantastic job to really bring in that sort of inclusivity and that diversity. But I think we have a place to help that as well.
And I think if we all have an action to do, you know, we've talked about schools and what we can do. There are some amazing organisations out there, such as a great organisation called Innovate Hair. There's Girls Network. There's Coding for Girls. There's the Coding Black Females. There's the STEMettes. There's so many different organisations that will enable us to give our time back and, you know, sort of pay that forward. Is that, do you think that's one of the solutions, Irvi?
Yeah, absolutely. I think those organizations, which have obviously you've named a few there, they are targeting, from what I know about them and from the ones I've been involved with, they are targeting the right level of making tech inclusive and interesting at really, really early levels, and actually making sure there's opportunities at later stages as well. You know, coding workshops, free coding workshops or courses specifically aimed at girls or people who identify as non-binary. And I think absolutely they are doing great. They're doing exactly, I think, what needs to be done there, because we've touched on it a few times about just making sure that there is seen to be exciting opportunities for anyone who is interested. And I think, yeah, echoing Hina's point as well, like people who are already in organizations who might identify as diverse in any form, really, because obviously diversity can take so many different forms, are doing their part, both taking part in you know, whether that's part of the interviewing process or becoming a mentor for someone who's just joined or is at a really early stage of their career. And I think, you know, doing things like that can make exactly what Hina's just touched on. Once you're in a company or once you are in the workforce, making sure you can thrive there and that you can continue to see it as somewhere where you fit in and you can work.
And I'm just looking at Gemma's question in the chat. There is something, what part of organisations got to play? You know, we're in an economic cost of living crisis. And, you know, Gemma stated that, you know, class is a big issue here. The idea that your character is related to your wealth is something that affects. How do we not miss out? How do we lift up? How do we reach out? How do we, you know, encourage, support, pay it forward? I know what we're doing to try and tackle this around our social mobility, around our power-ups, but what can organizations and what can individuals do to sort of to really support this and to reverse this? Izzy, could I come to you first? Is that okay?
Yeah, I know that from our perspective, we do what I would term grassroots, but I wonder if that's more of a sporting term. But we do go out into the community and do outreach programs for that kind of stuff from platforms, but also from different parts of the Navy. And I think that it's every company's or it should be on every company to provide those sort of outreach programs, as well as on local councils to provide for every aspect, and hopefully that would then encapsulate all areas of the poverty divide, and then open opportunities to all. I know that when we look at outreach programs, we don't specifically pick areas that we think are affluent or anything like that, but I'm not saying that somehow we then fall under potentially not ignoring, but maybe accidentally negating certain communities. And I do think it is a problem that we are going to have to address more, and the only way we can do that is by, one, acknowledging that it is a possibility, two, hopefully pushing back on the fact that there is this potential to demonize, as you've suggested, and then provide help and support in any way that we can, if that is outreach programs or just being there and open to absolutely anyone and everyone, and hoping that, or trying to make sure that money isn't a factor.
Hina, United Utilities, I think you play quite a big part in this space, don't you, from what I've been part of and seen?
Yeah, so we've done a great deal of work with trying to reach out to schools. We've gotten involved with trying to help to drive sort of and promote digital and tech careers, and making sure that we're also providing sort of space for work experience and for graduate schemes to make sure that we're being as inclusive as we possibly can. I mean, we provide water and water services. Water is not biased, water is for everybody. And so there's an opportunity for everybody to be a part of the sort of, the challenge that is, how do we serve that water? How do we make sure that we're looking after our resources? And I think so it's making sure that we're mirroring our customer base with our workforce as well. So we've done a lot of proactive campaigns to make sure that we're driving outreach, as Izzy said as well. And I think it's working really well, because at the end of the day, it's what you bring to the table as a person, isn't it? It's not about your background. I mean, I actually went through the education process. I was brought up with a single parent, I'm what's classed as a benefit baby, as they say. I had a lot of help and social help through my career and through my education. And I think, there's an element of paying that back as well. It's how we make sure people feel that this is for them. As I've said before, it's the identity of belonging.
And I think that whole pay it forward is always something that is literally at the heart. And I think, as I'm going to come to each of you in this final minutes, just to give your one sort of top takeaway from today, we've covered a lot of ground today. I think one of the things around your question, Gemma, is very much around, I think we all have to be intentional, whether we work for a big organization, whether a small organization, whether, we have some extra time that we can give. I think we have to be intentional with reaching out and not just, sort of ticking boxes. We have to be intentional about how we support and pay it forward and take people with us. So, Evie, what's our top takeaway from today?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, just echoing what you said, it's about not only just the companies we work for and what we can do there, but also the individual responsibility, right? We're obviously all passionate about this subject, so we need to make ourselves accountable and responsible to be able to affect the change that we can, even just on an individual basis, right? When that's the type of thing you can take to whatever industry, whatever company you work at, right? I think that's obviously really key.
Thanks, Evie. And Claire, I'm not ignoring you. If anyone's we need some resources for Claire, is in her late 40s, living by the coast. She wants a fast track or be able to enter into this growth area. So please either do follow up on the chat in LinkedIn, Claire, or we'll put resources out in the chat as well. Izzy, top takeaway.
I think that it's open to everyone. It's improving. We are improving. We have to remember where we've come from and to. And so it's open to everyone, and we really should encourage anybody giving it a try, regardless of what their interest is.
Thank you. And Hina?
I'm going to say, based on everything we've talked about, here's where it's at. It's so exciting. Don't miss the opportunity. And for people like us, it's for us to lean in, bring people out and bring people with us on the journey, because it is so much fun and it's so rewarding when you get there.
Oh, thank you. Listen, thank you all you. Thank you, Lou Hosker, always a great supporter of what we do over at BNY Mellon. So literally, I think so many things to say here. This is an exciting industry. It's an accessible industry, and in fact, there's lots of opportunity. It's not all about tech geeks and lab coats and flying drones, although they're really cool too. It's about solutioneering, problem solving, or whatever makes you you, I think is key. I think hopefully we are turning a corner, but we cannot ignore some of the stats. So we have to keep on doing. We have to keep on being intentional. We have to be visible role models. We have to mentor. We have to engage. The peer groups around us will support with that retention as well. And never forget to pay it forward. Thank you so much for joining me here today and my amazing panelists, Ovi, Hina, and Izzy. Thank Barclays Technology for supporting our Let's Talk About Tech webinar. You can sign up to all of our events at wearepower.net, which is the power platform we built our technology. We're tech now, so that you can keep conversations going, connect with role models, pass on your skills, services, and please do sign up to our Power Up mentoring. We've got 11 this month. wearepower.net/community/and events. Massive thanks to all of you. Forgive me for being an hour late. It's because I couldn't turn the mute off, but massive thanks again, and look forward to keeping the conversation. We are Power. Thank you all.